Good afternoon to you. I wanted to make a brief video for students in the Criminal Justice Writing English 168WA. Before I get into the video, I wanted to give you some comments on a speaker to my class today, Detective Tom Horan. And I also, early in the semester, I had District Magisterial Judge Joe DeMarcus, who works in Jeannette, and he was actually a City of Jeannette police officer when he started his career. But I just wanted to share, Detective Horan and Judge DeMarcus's backgrounds for you to see the career paths that they followed, and you can see as far as how you can advance in the criminal justice field. But I wanted to tell you, though, if you're looking for a job that's like 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, 5 days a week, do not get into law enforcement. It's not that type of job, because sometimes you're going to have to stay after work and write reports and go in on the weekends and wake up in the middle of the night. If you're with Westmoreland County and you're a detective and you're on call, you have to answer the phone. You have to go. You can't say, I have a headache, or I don't feel like it, or, it's my wife's birthday. That makes no difference. You have to be able to go out and handle the cases as they come, and you have to be energized and determined, because it's a very difficult job. But anyhow, with Judge Joe DeMarcus, he was, and Tom Moran, same thing. They both went to the Navy or the military. I'm not sure of the Navy, but they were veterans. They got out, and then they went to WCCC and got their associate's degree. And then both went on and got bachelor's degrees and then master's degrees. And anyhow, then they both teach here at WCCC as adjunct criminal justice faculty members. And I know they both also teach at the WCCC Municipal Police Officers Academy. But, Judge DeMarcus was like I said, a City of Jeannette police officer, and then he did that. He left as a lieutenant, and then he went to Westmoreland County at the Detectives Bureau, and then was a detective. He handled homicides and lots of other felonies and so on. But his specialty was crimes against women and children. Sexual assault, other types of issues of that nature, even as far as even children living in an unsafe environment or an unclean environment, other issues like that. That's what he really dealt with. Detective Moran was a Ross Draver police officer, I know, for at least 5 years, and then he went to the Westmoreland County Detective Bureau, and he was there for quite a few number of years, and then he eventually decided to make a little bit of a career change and became the Director of Safety and Security of Pitt Greensburg. And he did that for at least 5 years, and now he's back with Westmoreland County, but as a detective. But he said at any one time he handles 30 cases at a time, and he also had said that he does white-collar crime, and he had mentioned that there was a case in Murraysville or Delmont or in that particular area where these employees from a company there took $500,000 worth of these silver ingots, and they were smaller, and you could put them in like a coffee can. And then what they would do is they had a connection, and they would have somebody sell them to a place up in Wilkes-Barre on the eastern side of the state. And so that's what they were doing. But they eventually found out the scheme. But Detective Horan had said that there were 5,500 pages of phone records alone. And he said just the documents and the bank records and all that, he said it was so much information that it took him an entire day on Saturday and Sunday. I think he was there about 18 hours on both days just to make CDs for the defense of those documents. So you get an idea of the scope of the information. And last year when he was in our class, there was an issue with a member of clergy with a church in Westmoreland County and there was money missing. And so Detective Moran, I asked him about the case. He says, funny you should ask about that, because we were able to make a connection to this individual who's in a prison in Camp Hill that was also involved in this, and so they're making headway on that case. So some of these cases take time to to prosecute. Tom Moran also had mentioned a case some years back, and it actually was a made-for-TV movie. There was a doctor at Latrobe Hospital who was a doctor in training. His name was, I think it was Dr. Bagbay. And so he had gone to Keystone State Park, which is close to New Alexandria. But anyhow, he had gone there, and they ended up finding him shot. And when they went to the crime scene, they found bottles of cold Rolling Rock beer. They found some unused condoms. There was a box of condoms that he had, and there was a few other things. And so obviously the observation that they had made is that he had gone there to have a sexual encounter with someone probably he knew. And so upon digging further, they found out that his former girlfriend, who was also a doctor but was now in Iowa, drove to Latrobe and arranged to meet him, and he had been dating someone else, and so he didn't want to break it off, so she shot him. And so they were able to find that out. Eventually, though, she ended up going to Canada, and Canada does not have the death penalty, and so she was not being able to be extradited back to Westmoreland County, because that's what the district attorney here, John Peck, wanted to do. And so sadly, what happened is she was, I believe she was even pregnant at the time, and she had a baby, and then she ended up jumping off a cliff, I believe, into a body of water and killing herself and the baby. But it was very unfortunate. But that some of these cases get really, really involved. But the thing that I just really wanted to say to you is that it takes time and effort and investigation. It's not like these CSI shows that you see on TV where in an hour everything's wrapped up really nice and neatly. Sometimes it can take, years to really, resolve some of these cases. He gave the example in 1999, Dr. Carl Long allegedly, murdered his wife, Elaine, in their home in Ligonier. He was a Greensburg podiatrist. And Tom said from 1999 to 2003, it took that long for the case to go to trial. And he said there were all these extensions and so on. And so he said that he was actually the director of safety and security at Pitt Greensburg when he had to go to trial. So he had to get his report and look at it. And the cases are involved. He gave another example of two other cases. One was that these four individuals, these two couples, were sitting around a fire, and it was Easter evening onto Easter Sunday, and what happened is they drank that long, and they decided to play Russian roulette, and the one man put the gun to his head and shot and killed himself. And so the people were so intoxicated they couldn't remember where they were, so they had to use the beer bottles with their fingerprints and the gun and all that to figure out where they were, and they were able to use the physical evidence to put it together. He also said too, as a detective, sometimes they'll be called in like a couple weeks after something has occurred, and they use an example of a man in Manor who they found him, and they found a shotgun in his room, and there was his head was blown off, and the Manor police thought it was a suicide, and here they started to dig into it a little bit. It was a homicide, and so they ended up having to investigate that, but it was after the fact, which is really sort of difficult to do. So he was using that, and then he also used one other example today, and he brought a folder, I'm looking for a binder, that he probably had 10 or 12 different items in it, and it was a case involving a man from Jeanette that I guess got into an argument or something with a person in a bar, and he ended up, the man was fleeing, and he ended up shooting at the man 10 times, but only hitting him 3 times, and he lived. But every one of those bullets, they had to find it, they had to number it at the crime scene. If it was stuck in up in the wood of the building, they had to do that. Then the gun, they ended up finding it in Mount Pleasant, and so the Mount Pleasant police had to write a report, but the crime scene specialist had to write a report. And it's very, very involved. And then You have to write your criminal complaint and affidavit of probable cause. Had to do a search warrant. You have to compile evidence, and you have to go to the magistrate level, then the Court of Common Pleas, and usually in this case, it's been a couple of different times in the Court of Common Pleas, so it's really involved. But he just wanted to show the students that you have to document and articulate the evidence, and you have to be able to explain it, but you have to be able to write really well. And he had said that one day of a week he spends just writing. He said so at least 8 hours a day, 8 hours for a week, and sometimes up to 16. That he just writes and documents and articulates his cases. He also too does something that's a little blightly different than some detectives. Most people will carry a notebook, but he said with major crimes that he's involved in, like this one with Dr. Long in Ligonier and his wife Elaine, he has a tape recorder, like a dictaphone sort of thing, and he carries it. So he says it's midnight on Saturday morning, November 9th, 2013. It's approximately 30 degrees, clear night, and so on. I'm driving from my home in Youngwood, and I'm heading up to Ligonier Township. I was called by Westmoreland County 911. When I get there, I notice, that there are Ligonier Township police there. Porch light is on. All the lights are on the house. When I enter, I see this, and so he goes through, and then if he talks to people, as well, of course he has to ask their permission if he's interviewing them, but he records this, and then he has his report pretty much done. And then also, too, he doesn't lose some of the information. So he said it's, very, very helpful to him. And so that's one way of doing notes and, that sort of thing. So anyhow, I just wanted to share that with you because I enjoy teaching these classes because it makes you realize how important your key details are. When you go to the Court of Common Pleas, like most lower level cases like speeding or shoplifting and so on are typically handled at the district magisterial level cases, and some theft cases and so on are handled there. But when you go to the Court of Common Pleas, like more involved felonies, murderers and so on, more major forgeries and thefts and so on, are handled at that level. But when you go to the Court of Common Pleas, the thing you need to realize is beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean 100%. To show beyond a reasonable doubt is probably 80% or a little bit more. But what the defense is trying to do is chip away at your case. So if you're not accurate upon the type of clothing or what the weather is like or whatever, that creates problems. And Detective Moran said, with that case involving the person in Manor that was a victim of homicide, not suicide, the Manor police wrote it was a apparent suicide. And so, the defense attorney is going to say, well, what did you write? What did you say? Why did you think that was a suicide initially? Now they just use the word death investigation. But I'm just trying to tell you is that defense attorneys will just chip away and will even look at your writing. Can't you spell? Can't you articulate this? And so your writing will be scrutinized and really looked at. So I just wanted to, like I said, just give you a good sense of that. All right, I wanted to tell you as well what we have to do for the rest of the semester. There's one exercise that's due for today, exercise number 2 on page 82. And then you also have to do for Friday the 15th, you have to do the quiz for Chapter 7. For the 22nd, there's a narrative that's due, and that one's on a attempted suicide. And then also for the 22nd, you have to watch the program Dateline, which I really like. And they have a number of really excellent ones on YouTube. And but of course, I believe Dateline's on a Friday night, so you can watch it. But they have excellent episodes. But in assignments, I actually gave you a template to follow for that assignment, so that's what's due. For the 29th, there's a quiz for Chapter 8. I'm going to have you write about a dangerous or problem intersection or road near your home, near your place of work, in your community, or whatever it may be. You can actually use Google Maps for that, or you can use that's easier to do it that way. For Friday, December the 6th, it's like you have to write your experience as a police officer, and you can read that one in assignments. You have to do quiz for Chapter 9. For the 13th of December is quiz for Chapter 10, and the investigative report is due at the very end of the semester. With the investigative report, this is not advanced composition or I teach technical communication. As long as you're able to state the problem, why it's a problem, what you found through your investigation, and what your short and long-term recommendations are, I'll be fine with that. I just want you to be able to investigate and follow through, with a situation. And it's very simple, but I just want you to get one of those under your belt in this class. So that would be it. Thank you, and have a good weekend.